At this time, I will allow the leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, to present.
Good afternoon. Let me first of all apologize. Let me first of all take this opportunity to thank all the members of the APN and supporters for the hard work that they put in to local government elections 2023. We also want to thank our supporters in the diaspora who have been very, very supportive. Thanks also to the AFC who chipped in and helped. To our social media supporters, a special thanks. And us in the party with a lot of godly people, we want to thank all those who prayed and worked for success. It is felt that when you pray and you work, then you will succeed. And last but not least, we want to thank the media for the coverage during the elections. We believe those were critical. We want to congratulate all our successful candidates. And we want to congratulate all the candidates that would have participated, all our members and supporters. But more importantly, we want to thank our new young core of political workers. We hope that they would have learned from their experience and that by the time we meet the next elections, whenever they're called, they will be maturing into senior party activists. For us, local government elections was a clear case of the people rejecting the PPP. The low turnout among others are indicative of that. We also believe it's a rejection of the bad governance, the arrogance and corrupt practices of the People's Progressive Party. But more importantly, we want to hail the consciousness of our members and supporters. When many felt that bribery and inducing them would have resulted in some illusionary green wave, our people showed that they understand politics, they are politically conscious, and they did the right thing. They fought off bribery. We fought off the installation of fear in people. We fought off police harassment. Throughout this campaign, the PPP activists were calling the police and they were locking up some of our members for no reason at all. And we're glad that our people stood up in the face of this pomposity and politicization of the Guyana police force. We fought off the misuse of taxpayers' money in this campaign. And therefore, there are certain things we surely must condemn. One of the first things we want to condemn, and we will engage GCOM in it, is the attempt to steal the elections in Industry Plaisance, where clearly the APNU would have won, and they did some strange mathematical concoction that, with the hope that the PPP will be able to win that NDC. It wouldn't happen. We condemn the incompetence of the Chief Executive Officer of GCOM, the chairperson, and GCOM in general. For those who follow these elections will know, it was a clear manifestation of incompetence and the inability of the Elections Commission to manage a proper election. We also condemn the collaboration of some GCOM staffers and some members of the Guyana Police Force in favor of the People's Progressive Party. We believe in an election, these people are supposed to be independent and objective. Sadly, on a number of occasions, they attempted to collude against the APNU. The poor management of the entire electoral process was brought into focus. We also condemn government's abuse of state resources, transportation, be it government vehicles, be it aircraft that are paid for by taxpayers' money. They give themselves an advantage. And it is our political organization and work that caused that advantage to dissipate. And so while we would have beaten them as we thought we will, we think it is opportune to condemn the misuse of state resources. We also think that the issuance of the cash grant just before the election, when it's not the normal time, was another attempt to use the resources of the state to help the People's Progressive Party. To the extent that there was low turnout, particularly in PPP strongholds, it suggests that there has been a rejection of the People's Progressive Party and its bad governance. We condemn also the attempt by some ministers to bully their ways into polling stations when they weren't accredited. And then some attempts to stop people like me who were accredited. And so all of those, we think we need to make it very clear. One of the things that these elections confirm, particularly in the outlying regions like region number 1, where they went into mass-scale bribery, etc., and they took every seat. We will deal with that in future, but again, we must condemn it. For us, this is a victory for the people of Guyana. The people of Guyana do not want a one-party state. The people of Guyana reject the PPP's attempt at domination and control. And so we see it as a victory, not only for the APNU, but for the people of this country. It's a victory against domination and control. We also wish to point out that there has also been a victory for grassroots politics. Many felt that with the optical politics played by the PPP of many flags and jerseys all around, that they would have some reason storm over the APNU. We did grassroots work, and this was a victory for grassroots work. Our people worked tirelessly, we worked hard, and we got the victory we deserve. It is very important that I state here that we intend to continue the campaign for a clean voters list, because some of the ills that occurred in these elections would have been not occurred had there been a clean voters list. We will also continue the fight for biometrics. But above all, these elections manifested the fact that with organization, we can and will beat the People's Progressive Party with whatever resources they have at their disposal. And that for us is important. The world has been shown, our country has been shown that money alone cannot win. When people's interests are protected and satisfied, and they develop the vigor and the energy to work, you can beat any political machinery, however moneyed it is. A lot of times, people in the political realm, especially the PPP, fail to recognize that money can't buy commitment. But where people are committed, they will fight and succeed. And I believe it is the commitment of our members or supporters and all Guyanese that resulted in the kind of victory we have had. We have noticed, interestingly, that the vice president and the PPP started by saying, oh, we will win in then, we will win New Amsterdam, we will win Georgetown. When they are beaten in normal Jagdion style, he resorted to talking about making inroads. I do not believe you make inroads by buying votes. You make inroads when you have a genuine political movement that goes on the ground, does political work, and people buy into it. This is a clear case of mass-scale bribery, and we don't see it as making inroads. We see it as the misuse of state resources. We see it as a violation of law. We see it as contempt for the democratic process, especially when people are asked to take a picture of how they voted and bring it so that they can be paid. Those are all things that are anti-democratic. And more importantly, it removes a very critical
time. We will take questions for those in the room. If you want to ask a question, you'll state your name and your media house, and same for those online.
Is the floor open for questioning?
Hello. Hi. Hi, good afternoon. Vishani Raghavir from the newsroom. A few questions for you, Mr. Norton. First, last night we heard from the General Secretary of the PPPC that what they may not have won constituencies in your strongholds outright. They're happy that they would have been able to gain more votes than they would have at the last elections. Is that something you're concerned about?
Not deeply concerned. The results they have for the level of money they spent, the bribery they were involved in, the corruption they were involved in, I wouldn't be worried. What we will do is take our time and ensure we continue to sensitize people so that by the next election, they will diminish further.
Additionally, you mentioned yesterday when you spoke to members of the media after voting that it was your party's strategy to focus your limited resources on your strongholds. You talk a lot about building on this going into the 2025 general and regional elections. Is that going to be your continued strategy?
Well, first of all, I never suggested it was going to be a continued strategy. What I suggested is that we did an analysis of the situation. And in the light of all the bribery and the preponderance of money that was around, we thought it to be strategically important to focus on maintaining our strongholds, make inroads in some areas. For instance, the vice president mightn't tell you, but we got votes in Bushlat, an area where we did work. He wouldn't want to tell you that in Platanka, we increased our votes. And there are many areas around where we would have increased our votes. So our strategy will not be limited. In the national elections, we will contest in every area. But we thought in the present circumstances, we should not spread ourselves thin. We should focus on those areas that we think are key and that we need to be efficacious in. And that is what we did.
Just my final question for you before I hand over to my colleagues. You mentioned you have some concerns about about the tabulation in Region 1. Can you expand on that?
Well, I didn't say tabulation. The word out of Region 1 was that people were fetched into various areas. There wasn't the kind of mechanisms that allow our folks there to scrutinize. And so the PPP ended up, for the first time in history, winning all the seats in Port Kaitumo, all the seats in Matthews Ridge, all the seats in Mabarumo, which never happened when we are contesting on a level playing field.
Ciao, Brian, the Evening News. First question, you mentioned that you'll be engaged in GCOM on the tabulation in industry pleasance. Does that mean you'll be seeking a recount? And my second question, the PPP has been projecting it'll win 65 out of 80 local authority areas. Is this a concern for you, especially in the context looking ahead at the general elections?
When Jagdo is speaking, you always assume it's not true. I will check the data, but for now, I don't think that is the issue. What Jagdo is seeking to do is to shift the goalposts. Remember, he set the goalposts. We're going to beat the APNU in Linden. We're going to beat them in Georgetown. We're going to beat them in New Amsterdam. When you get blues, you now start talking about 65 versus 85. We said from the inception that we weren't contesting in many areas. And therefore, for him to come with that is clearly disingenuous. So again, I'm not worried. I understand the nature of the chap we're dealing with. Which is the other one? Oh, well, we didn't say we will demand a recount. This is not a case of a recount. This is a case of people in the system using the wrong calculation to give the PPP the advantage. We will pursue it and ensure it is calculated properly. So the reality, which is the APNU of one Plaisance, industry Plaisance, is manifested.
A follow-up, is that the only area that you'll be seeking to pursue in terms of the tabulation, or there are other areas you may have similar concerns?
This is the only one that we have heard of so far. But you know, one of the things I don't do is make absolute statement like it's the only one. As the situation evolves and the information comes, we will act appropriately.
Okay, thank you. I see the hand in our Zoom for Mr. Jevon Vickery. Can I understand it?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Norton. I have two questions. My first question is, what is your strategy moving forward with relations to the areas which you didn't contest? For example, Parfait Harmony. One of the things that we realized yesterday was that many people turned out to vote in Parfait only to not see the party contesting in that area. What is the strategy moving forward for 2025 with these areas that you did not have a representative? That's my first question.
Well, I've already answered that. I've said that moving forward, we will cover the whole country. As it relates specifically to our strategy, one does not put one strategy in the public domain for people to strategize. We had a number of strategies in these elections, the last elections we can talk about. First, we decided we will lull the PPP into a state of complacency by saying we wouldn't run, while parallel we were preparing to run. And then when we actually decided we would run, they were scattering. If I had said that to them then, they would have prepared for us. And so strategy for me must be kept and disclosed only when it is necessary to disclose. I will not tell you what we will do strategically, but what I will say to you, what we will do strategically will result in victory against the People's Progressive Party.
Are you concerned that nothing has been released preliminarily from the Ghana Elections Commission? I have another one after this.
I didn't hear that question.
I'm sorry. Are you concerned that there is not much results being released from the Ghana Elections Commission with regards to the results from yesterday?
When you're dealing with a party like the People's Progressive Party, you must be concerned. They know no decency. They have no respect for the rule of law, and anything is possible. And if what happened in Plaisance is indicative of what is a possibility, then they should be a concern. We're not overtly concerned, but I always believe that you have to keep your eyes on the People's Progressive Party.
And one question, if I may, you're gonna, based on the unofficial results, I should say, you're gonna have a majority at City Hall. What are some of the things that you're planning on doing in terms of changing maybe the outlook of the city? Or have you sat down and had any plans about that as yet?
Well, first of all, you know, when we were in government as the APNU, AFC, we brought Georgetown from a place of untidiness to a place of cleanliness. We had restored it to the Garden City. The PPP came to power, destroyed that approach, and now we are back to the garbage city. Our general strategy will be to do everything to ensure that we improve the aesthetics, the entire environment, and all aspects of life in Georgetown.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Adam House.
Good afternoon, everybody. Two quick questions. One, according to the count, in the city council, the PPP will gain an additional seat. If I remember correctly, the last time PNC had 20 or 21, PPP 7, and APNU 2. Has the PNC increased the number of seats it has in the city council, sir? And if you want, I can ask another question. The other question has to do with Madhya.
What is the question? I heard the preamble.
Okay. The PPP is going to gain 1 additional seat in City Hall. AFC had seats there. Has your party increased the number of seats in City Hall, sir?
What's the question?
You hear me? You hear me?
All right.
You hear me?
No, as far as I know, we still not confirm the results, but let's assume perchance the impossible occurs and the PPP increases by 1 or 2. Then I wouldn't be worried, because based on the level of bribery and corruption they were involved in, most people anticipated they would have won Georgetown. To the extent that they are now going to be speaking about a possible increase of 1 and 2, that says to me that they have been defeated. And so it's a basis for us to move forward.
My other question, sir, has to do with Madhya. Now, early this morning, I learned that Apnu had 1 Madhya. Subsequently, they said it was a tie. Now I understand that there are moves to readjust the figures. Have you heard that, sir? And are you prepared to challenge that?
Well, I don't know about readjusting the figures. I think what they were saying is that they want a runoff in Madhya and Bartika where there's a tie. My instructions to Bartika and Madhya is that there should be no runoff. There's no provision for it in the Constitution. What has to happen is the 2 sides engage, and since I am the chair of the APNU, I will lead that engagement, and then we sought to solve the problems and move forward. I will not fall into the PPP trap of a runoff. If you go into a runoff, what that means with their penchant for utilizing state resources, you're going to be up against the use of state resources in 2 areas that they can focus on. Anybody with political sense wouldn't accept that.
Thank you. Name and media house.
Hey, good afternoon. Joseph Allen, Starbuck News. I'm not sure if the parties officially put out areas that they have won. Could you give us a synopsis or so of areas that you have won around across the country?
As far as I know, there are many areas that we would have won. For instance, we've taken back Buxton Falls. We won Pleasance Industry again. You know, we won Linden. You know, we won New Amsterdam. You know, we won Georgetown.
Kokwani.
I don't think we could spend the time telling you all the areas we won. On West Coast would be something that people are not paying attention to. We did extremely well, and we believe we can beat the PPP in Region 5. We will do the work to do it.
I would like to ask, sir. Sorry, I would like to ask. They say it's illegal to photograph your ballot and post it. There is evidence of people doing just that. Will the party move to have those people prosecuted, sir?
The party will analyze the situation with its legal people. And then once we analyze all the options, we will make a decision and then let you know what we will do.
Okay, if nobody ain't coming, let me ask you this
Yeah, I have a
one.
question.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, in terms of your, the figures your party would have accumulated from your own examination of SOPs and so on, what does that tell you about voter turnout in your strongholds?
Voter turnout was generally low, but we think in our strongholds, even though it was low, it was not as low in many PPP areas. One, in looking at this question, must also recognize that it is local government election, in which there is a low level of enthusiasm. But if you take into consideration the kind of money the PPP spent, and they get that low turnout, then it's a clear rejection. If we had spent that kind of money and we didn't do well, I would have resigned. But you know, the PPP, there's no scope for that. John Doe is Lord and God. And so he's not going to do anything like that. But when I look at it, the turnout was low. Aristotle, in the days when I taught politics, I always told people, Aristotle had a famous statement, you never compare non-equals. And I wouldn't run to compare it general elections, etc. There are different factors informing them.
And also it's sensitization in terms of the government.
Oh yes, that's the other thing. When you talk about elections, GCOM is piss poor when it comes to voter education. And so, in some regard, GCOM will take a little of the blame. But like I've said before, with the kind of resources the PPP put into this campaign, the returns is going to be like the returns we will get when we got on the fiber optic cable that Jack Doe built, or on the Skeldon sugar factory. They're all zero returns, really.
All right, thank you. I see, Mr. Adam Harris, you can go ahead with your question.
Sorry, I can't really hear. But thing I know is me. You're calling me. If you're calling me, just nod or wave your hand.
Yes, you.
Is it? Did she say yes?
Yes, Adam.
All right. Quick question, sir. You had a lot of work to do during the run-up to this local government elections. There was campaigning. Where does this put you for 2025 elections? Is there going to be a back off, or is this going to give your campaign a momentum to take it forward, sir?
Well, first of all, you seem to know it's going to be in 2025. I'm looking at 2024, if I understand who I'm dealing with. But this for me was a dry run for the general and regional elections. And as I see it, what we have to do is to keep the forces together, expand in terms of bringing in people to work, and then continue prepare to oil the machinery for whenever general elections are called.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. Joseph here again. In order to specify your areas, I know you don't want to list all the areas that we want. Is there a specific number that we're working with of the areas?
I don't want to get into numbers until we officially get all the results, because I may add Plaisance industry, industry Plaisance, which we won, but it's in some amount of controversy. And then we'll have to look at what happened in Bartica and we call it. So I don't want to go down that road. What I want us to do is to draw the conclusions from the process. That one, it's the PPP has been rejected. And two, the General Elections Commission has shown that they lack the competency to realize elections that will be free from some of the hiccups we had. You might not know this, but in many of our strongholds, we had situations where when a person goes to the polling station, they're told their name not on the list. And then we had to have people find it, and then you go back and it's right there on the list. You know, we don't know what to blame that on, if it's GCOM, instruction, or just incompetence by the people they would have chosen. There's another thing that is very concerning for us that we had to think, and I could imagine what happened in PPP areas with them alone. They weren't allowing people to see the picture so that you could compare to the folio. They were staying at a distance and do like that. Now that is a recipe for fraud. So this is where the folio was done. No photograph.
There are some people who, it's a nice word, they claim defected. Have you had any report of them gaining success during these elections? Did they win anything?
Was that? Huh? Well, I did say early that the people, everybody is entitled to join which political party they want to. But we have no problem if the PPP wants to pick up people who can't win on their own. And we did say that the likes of Tricia Richards and Chase Green, it wasn't a case where they had some pull that they would have brought people. We knew full well that once they didn't have the APNU machinery behind them, they were dead meat. But you can't stop Barry Jagdeo from picking up anything that is dropped. He has this tendency to cost the PNC, but the minute he could find somebody from the PNC, gone with that. Unfortunately, take those without influence.
Thank you.
Was this the case in New Amsterdam with Barbara Pilgrim?
Well, the area she's from, I don't know that the one or came close. So you can arrive at your conclusion. Mind you, Barbara Pilgrim has been a long-serving member of this party. I liked her. I've always respected her. She had her own right to choose. I understand the situation that caused her to end up in the PPP, but I was never at all sanguine that she stood a chance of pulling people from the APNU. But at the same time, I will not condemn her. When I joined the party in 1972, she was there. I have, if not political respect for her now, historical and a kind of matriarchal type respect for her. And I hope that that will continue. We will extend a hand to any one of them who want to come back. Because we know, when you go to the PPP, you have use value during elections. Just after that, you're useless in terms of value.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yes. Mr. Norton. Yeah, Javon Vicker, Guyana Standard. Mr. Norton, this is your first election as opposition leader, and it is also the first election of the party since it broke away from its coalition partner. What are some of the lessons you have learned personally as opposition leader? And based on the stats you've been receiving from the SOPs, do you have any intention in 2024 or 2025 of doing another coalition going against the People's Progressive Party?
First thing is to say, you said that since we broke away from the coalition, we didn't. One of the coalition partners opted to involve in the coalition at the parliamentary level, but opted to do their political work by themselves. To that we agree. Our coalition partner decided that they weren't going to run in the local government election. We decided that we will because it is in our interest, and we weren't prepared to leave the door open for a dictator like Jack Leo to have everything at his disposal. And so, but that apart, we believe in coalition, and we will work assiduously to have coalition. One of the positives of coalition politics is that it allows you to have people outside of your thinking. And so there's a cross mix of ideas. There is an interfertilization, if there is such a concept, that allows you to produce much better quality information, etc. So there are a lot of positives to coalition. There are areas we're going to be strong. There are areas coalition members will be strong. And if we can have them in a coalition, that would help. So I would say the answer is we're into coalition politics. We will work assiduously to have the coalition. One of the things I would guarantee you, though, we're not going to beg. We're a proud party. We believe in our strength. We're humble when it comes to relating to other parties, but we do not believe in being supine.
And the other question, sir, was what are some of the personal lessons you have learned being
yes.
leader of the
So,
opposition?
there are many things I would have learned, but not that I would have learned. If you observe these elections, there was a change from what we did in the party before. A lot of times before, the elections were run from Georgetown, the center. Now, we put trust in the leadership in those regions, in those municipalities, and they run extremely well, good elections. So we learn that there is value in allowing people in their locality to run. It develops their leadership skills, their ability to understand and deal with election. Of course, it had negative consequences, which we have to rectify. When you go overboard with it, it doesn't allow you the level of coordination that you need. And so we will rectify that. The other thing I think we would have learned from this entire process is that our people are not stupid. They are politically conscious. Many they were, as we go in around campaign, come and say, oh, you know, the guy with East Rheinveld. I'm in East Rheinveld every day. I'm talking with people. I'm in West Rheinveld. So I be here and we can take the money. You can have a nice time. And then when the time comes, we're going to know how to vote. And that happened in large measure. So we learn that our people are not easily bought. But we also learn that there are some among us who are gullible that we have to work on. There are many lessons to be learned. We learn as well that the PPP is afraid to let its local candidates talk, while we allow our local candidates to talk, which says that they are so centralized that they cannot permit local democracy. There are a plethora of others that I can identify, but those will suffice for now.
Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question outside of the press conference?
Hold 1 second, Mr. Harris.
Don't go.
What you said? I didn't hear. Go again? All right.
Hold 1 second, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Chevron Bell of Kite News. I only have one question. Local government elections is over. You're now preparing for the general elections, and you said you're contesting in the entire country. What is your party's plan to improve the lives of Guyanese policy-wise in the different sectors that you can improve their lives so that you can at least get them assurance that when they come to vote for the general elections, we must vote for the coalition?
There are a plethora of ideas that we have. First of all, we said we're going to put in place a rent-to-own program in which we will build houses, allow people to pay rent, and when they pay a certain amount of money, that rent will go towards the ownership. And once they cover the cost, they will own it. So rent-to-own. We also said that we will put more money in funding for small and micro businesses, bringing more people, including our support base, into economic life at the business level, because we do believe that it is businesses that push economy. We intend to have cash grants, but in a more structured way. And we would want cash grants to be structured in a way that it contributes to the improvement of the child in school. We believe that there is scope for a national cash grant. We will look at it, calculate it, and work out how we give that cash grant and to whom we give it. And in this case, we're thinking households. We have already said that we need to improve the level of literacy in the society. So we will put a lot of money into primary education so as to ensure that by the time a child meets grade 3, that child can read, write, reason, comprehend, and count. That is critical. Human resource development is what makes a country tick. We also intend to do a lot of human resource development, do a survey of the jobs we need and create those jobs, but train the people for them. So training will be critical. We believe that we should have an oil refinery. What we don't believe is that it should be owned by the government. We will go out to invite investors to be involved so that we can have an oil refinery and remove the burden from us, put it to the investors, and that has a number of spin-off. From that you could get bitumen, and so to do your roads, etc. So we will go down that road. We have also said that we have to have a poverty reduction strategy. One of the things we'll do in the poverty reduction strategy is to ensure nobody paying under $150,000 a month pay taxes, make them tax exempt. We also said that we will look for a minimum livable income. And once we work out that figure, we will pay our people a minimum livable income. We gave considerable wages and salary increases when we were in government. We will increase it and focus on that again. Then we said to people, look, this government continues to tell you about climate change, but they're putting everybody on the coast. Our intention is to do highways linking the regions and put our people on highlands so that we remove the vulnerabilities from sea level rise. It is critical for us to ensure that we have a professional police force. You are aware when we're in government, we train a lot of policemen to solve crime, and we were solving crime. And so we believe that we need to professionalize the police force. We need to have a commissioner that is qualified and certified for the job. It should not be politicized. We also abhor the fact that the government tries to create a divide between the joint services and other public servants like doctors, nurses, etc. We're going to remove that divide. We will treat all as equal and ensure across the board when they are getting their benefits, they all get it. We are of the view that we have a lot of people that are left behind in terms of pension. I know some big men I lime and drink with. They cry out that the pension they got from the government when they retire in 1980 is probably $20,000. We will seek to bring those pensions up to date with modern pensions. It is heartrending for a policeman or somebody to work all their lives. Now you get the pension based on when you retire. But after you would have retired, they had inflation, increased cost of living. We're going to bring that pension up. Guyana suffers from a high level of hypertension and high blood sugar, whatever you call it. We believe the Constitution says that health should be free. We will work to be able to help those persons, but we also will launch a health education program and shift us towards preventive health rather than restorative health. Those are just some. Down the line, I will outline the plethora of measures we will take to ensure that we can influence the Guyanese people to support us.
Mic check. Yeah, just one more follow-up question. You've just spoken about the plans and support you have for the country in terms of policy. Now, Ghana is a country blessed with resources, not only oil, you have gold, you have bauxite, you have all these other resources. And I mean, there's talk in the media, international experts, that Guyana is not good at making deals. And I believe they said that, for example, they blame the Exxon deal, the bad decision made by this party. So how do you plan going forward in the future in terms of making sure that the Guyanese people get more from their natural resources so that you can use these resources to fund your plans and make their lives better?
Like I've said before, the agreement has scope or has a clause that permits us to engage Exxon and make changes to it. We will engage Exxon and make changes. As it relates to mining, it is not just mining. I was in the Northwest. I born and grew up in Linden. We have to do far more in mining. Apart from benefiting from the extraction, We have to do work to ensure that when people finish mining, they restore the mine lands. If you fly over Madhya, if you fly over any of the mining areas, you see what is left. We need to have a restorative mining program that allows us to restore those areas so with years to come, they can be used for other activities. And then they are, while everybody likes to focus on the extractive industry, I'm a strong believer that Ghana must keep producing agricultural products. And so I will invest significantly in agriculture. I've already said that I think the government fails us when they only invest in agriculture in regions 2, 3, parts of 4, 5, 6. What happened with 1? What happened with 7? What happened with 8? What happened with 9? What happens with 10? I would like to see a national agricultural program in which all regions are producing. Like I said in my budget speech, if you are producing your food in your region, then you don't have to transport it axiomatically. What happens is that it brings down the cost of living. And then once we get into agriculture, we also have got to become involved in agro-processing. There are many areas of agro-processing. When I was presidential advisor, and I'm just giving you one area, this is not necessarily agro-processing, but we give grants to young people who we put in beekeeping and producing honey. And we intend to go down that road. You should know that there are many byproducts, including soap, etc., that can come from honey production. So there is need for a more comprehensive approach to development. What does government do is flick and hope they land on the foot. There is no comprehensive approach that links agriculture, industry, infrastructure development, etc. When you're a little by a flick, and you only land on your foot and you land on your head, you can dead. When you're the country, you do it, you left the people to punish. We don't intend to do that. We intend to have proper programs, a proper plan, proper policies, proper vision, and we'll carry on forward based on that.
Thank you. And at this time, I will ask any final question.
Yes, please. This has to do with the High Court ruling on the appointment of a Chancellor and Chief Justice, sir. The judge said that this should have happened as quickly as possible. In my view, a lot of time has passed. Has there been any move to resolve this issue, sir?
Well, I would say this to you, I don't have to move, I've already moved. I wrote the president a letter a while back, I think sometime in last year. And in that letter, I stated very clearly that I agree to the appointment of Justice Cummins as Chancellor and Justice George as Chief Justice. The president, in his arrogance, responded that he can do it whenever he's ready. So direct the question to the arrogant whenever ready president.
You don't want to give him a nudge?
A nudge? When one nudges someone, one assumes that that one feels. I don't think they can take nudging.
All right, thank you.
And even if I decide I will nudge him, what happens if he bars Jack? They will say no.
All right, thank you so much. With no other hands raised, I do believe this brings us to the end of today's press conference. I want to thank all the media houses who are in-house and those of us, of course, who are joining us online, and to our viewers. Do have a wonderful afternoon.